clingy energy, that neediness. It's a repellent to women, to success, to life itself. It's weak, right? It leaks from your pores, even when you're saying all the right things. And the more you try to grip, the more life slips through your hands. Right? The things that you want the most, success, love, respect, they don't respond to neediness. They respond to certainty. They respond to the man who doesn't flinch if they show up and doesn't crumble if they don't. And that's why I'm here to challenge you today, because I never got taught this growing up. And I don't believe men get taught how to create from power instead of need. Right? No one teaches men how to detach without disconnecting, how to move forward without chasing. And that's the art that I want to bring to you in this video. Right? The sacred art of masculine detachment, which is strong, which is clear, which is undeniable. Right? The man who doesn't cling, he was the man who will win. The man who trusts his centre, he leads. Right? And I definitely learnt this the hard way. Okay? For years, I thought wanting something bad enough was the key. I thought if I pushed harder, I obsessed more, if I just held on tighter, I would finally get what I wanted. I treated life like a negotiation. Like, if I could just convince whoever it was how bad I wanted it, I would be rewarded with it. But that's not what happened. The harder I clung, right, the more needy I was, the more I choked the life out of the things that I truly wanted. I worked for years in sales, okay? And looking back, I can see why I repelled people, why deals fell apart, why opportunities ghosted me, right? And I remember one phrase, right, and it was just not long after I came out of rehab, right, and I was trying to overcome my addiction, right, and I was rebuilding my life. And somebody said to me that I had the gift of desperation, and I thought that was a good thing, right? I had something to prove to everyone that I was back, that I was a good dad, that I was a man of worth. I thought that hunger made me powerful, and don't get me wrong, it did serve me a little, right? But what it really made me was brittle, reactive, right? Tied to outcomes I could not control. Right? I showed up to every situation, interaction with this invisible energy of please see me. Right? And guess what? People can smell that shit a mile away. Even when I said the right words, they could feel it. Right? So I was still giving my power away. Right? And it wasn't until I hit another fucking brick wall and I had a failed coaching program launch, right? And I'd invested over 10 grand in this. And it was money that I did not have. I'd actually borrowed the money from my dad, promising that I would have it back after this launch. Okay? But the launch fucking bombed and the money was gone. I had no idea how I was going to pay him back. Right? And that almost broke me because if I wasn't low enough, the added pressure of this debt was fucking crippling me. Right? And that's when I knew that something had to change. Right? I was still operating from this energy of a broke man. Right? The man who needed results to validate his worth. The man who was still negotiating with life instead of just fucking taking control and leading it. Right? And that's when I found the book called The Surrender Experiment. Right? What a book. Right? That just opened my eyes up to a different way of living. Right? Total opposite to how I'd been wired. Right? And that's when I discovered the art of detachment or surrender, as the book would call it. Right? And it wasn't that cold, disconnected kind of detachment, but it was a kind where you can stand in your power, right? Fully in your vision and just let the chips fall, as they fall. And when I finally let go of needing it, right? When I finally stopped chasing and just started creating from the overflow, shit changed, right? Opportunities came out of nowhere. I had men I didn't even know started to DM me asking me if I would coach them. Right? Obviously, they'd seen stuff I'd been putting online, like on the lead up to this launch and everything, but I didn't know them. Right? And if it didn't happen to me, I wouldn't believe it. I was like, you're talking shit, mate. Nobody just DMs you and asks you to be their coach. Well, it happened to me, right? And in sales, I was taught to hustle harder, grind, right? Work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And at one point, I prided myself in that because I was making great money for my family. But what I didn't realise, my family didn't give a fuck about the money. They wanted me to be present, right? And when I finally let go of that old mentality, which at the beginning was very uncomfortable because it was new to me, right? But when I finally allowed myself to, live differently, people started to respect me more. And even if they didn't, I didn't give a shit because I was so solid within myself, I didn't need them to. And that's the difference that I want you to feel. Because until you break the addiction of needing it, you're always going to be at the mercy of things outside your control. Detachment isn't a weakness, it's the highest form of masculine strength. And let's break this down, right, from different angles so we can get a better understanding. So if you look at it from a spiritual lens, right, nearly every ancient tradition, right, attachment was seen as the root of suffering. And Buddha said it plainly, attachment is the cause of suffering. Because when you attach, you're trying to control what is instead of aligning with what could be. So if you just look at them all, right, Buddhism, Taoism, stoicism, right, attachment wasn't seen as a flaw, it was seen as the flaw, right, the root from which all suffering grows. And why? Because attachment is an illusion of control. It's the ego tricking you into believing you can own, keep, and command things that were never yours to begin with. And the truth is, you own nothing. Not your success, not your relationships, not your body, not even your next breath. Life is on loan to you. All of it. Right? And when you forget that, you cling. Right? And when you cling, you suffer. Right? You grip onto people, to outcomes, to timelines. And the more you grip, the more life slips through your fingers. Right? And the Taoists understood this deeply. Lao Tzu, yeah, he wrote, by letting it go, it all gets done. The world is won by those who let go. So, what does that mean? It means when you stop trying to dominate life from your ego, you start co creating from the flow. You stop forcing, you start aligning. You move from scarcity to abundance. Right? True masculine energy isn't desperate, it doesn't chase, it creates from the overflow. It holds space from the fucking madness of life while staying anchored within it. And when you master the art of non-attachment, you become like one of these big fucking mountains in a storm, right? Still rooted, just not movable. Because you're no longer clinging to outcomes. You're aligned with the process itself. Right? And this is what it says in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Krishna tells Arjuna, right? You have the right to act, but not to the fruits of your actions, right? This is a warrior's code of detachment, right? Act fully, give everything, but release your grip on the outcome. That is not weakness. That's the highest level of trust in life and in yourself. Right? And the Stoics, they nailed this. Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond your control. Right? So what he means is that anything outside of your thoughts, your choices, and your actions, what's not in your control, if you cling to it, you become weak. You let it go, you become free. Right? Marcus Aurelius, he said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Right? This wasn't about apathy. This was about focusing your energy where it actually creates results. Your mind, your action, your way of being. Right? Marcus Aurelius didn't just reflect on death, he reflected on letting go. Receive without pride, let go without attachment. Right? So to the Stoic man, right, the man who can let go of attachment to outcome, praise, validation, that was the man who fully owned himself. And when you live like this, you become fucking unstoppable. Right? And when you look at it from a psychological perspective, right? Modern psychology calls this the external locus of control versus the internal locus of control, right? When you live in external locus, Your happiness, your confidence, and your peace are tied to things outside of you, right? Money, approval, followers, women, success. You're on a fucking tight leash, right? You're always waiting for the world to tell you that you're enough, my man, you're good enough, well done, a little pat on the back. But when you flip into the internal locus, you stop waiting. You become the source. Your validation, your confidence, your direction comes from right in here, right within. This is how you build that undeniable, unshakable, unbreakable self-trust. Right? In attachment theory, this is called secure attachment. Men who are secure with themselves, they don't fucking grip onto their partners, their clients, their business, or their children with desperation, like I did, the gift of desperation. They hold space without controlling. They give freely because they are full. They're giving from the overflow, not because they're trying to fill a void. Right? This is the foundation of powerful relationships, business, leadership, fatherhood. When you detach, you create fullness. When you attach, you chase from lack. I don't have enough. Even neuroscience backs this up, right? Studies on flow state, right, which I've studied extensively, which psychologists call the most productive, creative state a human can enter. They show that flow can't be accessed when you're focused on outcomes. The prefrontal cortex, right, the part of your brain that worries, that plans, that clings, that actually quietens down during flow. You become fully present in the now moment, fully engaged, fully surrendered to the process itself. That's why time just disappears. That's why you're just immersed in whatever it is you're doing when you're entering that state, right? You're fully present in the moment. So, in simple terms, needing something to happen actually blocks the brain state where success becomes the most accessible, and detachment opens the door to peak performance. Right? And then if you look at the research on cortisol and stress, that shows that the more you cling to things that you cannot control, right, the higher your stress response is. You're literally flooding your body with survival chemicals when you attach to outcomes, to things. But when you release, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. You calm down. You create from clarity, not from chaos. So it's time to fucking cut this shit, right? This isn't about becoming some detached monk who sits under a tree in a mountain all day ignoring life. It's about becoming a man who can stand in the middle of the chaos of life and fucking not even flinch. A man who moves towards what it is that he wants, but doesn't need it to feel whole. Right? A man who plays the game of life to win, but can walk away without losing himself. That's detachment. It's not passive. It's not indifferent. It's fucking true power. Right? Needing is weakness. Creating is power. We are creative beings. That's why we're here on this earth to create. Right? The man who needs people to like him, needs success to feel worthy, needs things to go his way to feel secure, he's a slave. His emotional state is owned by things outside of him. But see, the man who creates from a place of already being whole, that's a totally different story. He doesn't chase outcomes, he creates them and then lets them go. He doesn't demand guarantees, he trusts himself enough to move forward without them. He doesn't grip to partners, relationships, clients, opportunities, or success like his life depends on it. Because it doesn't. His life does not. He knows who he is without all that shit. Right? This is when the identity shift will happen. You stop being the man who chases and you become the man who creates. Right? You stop being the man who needs and you're the man who leads. You stop being the man waiting for permission and you become the man who just gives himself the fucking green light. Go for it. I'm making my own decisions. Right? And this is not about some motivational slogan, some rah-rah pep talk. This is how masculine power operates at the highest level. Right? You want peace, detach. You want clarity, detach. You want to create from your highest self and not your wounded self, detach. Okay? It's not something you do once. It's a practice. It's how you wake up. It's how you move throughout your whole day. It's how you engage with family, your mission, your purpose, your goals, your business, right? From fullness, from the overflow, from a place where nothing owns you. Not fear, not people, not outcomes, not even the old stories that you've replayed in your fucking head a million times. right? And you don't get this by watching podcasts and reading books and all that shit. You get it by living it, right? By living it daily. And when you do that, you become unfuckwithable, right? The world feels you're different, right? Not because you shout about it and you're screaming from the top of the lungs, because you just radiate it. It's your energy, right? So if you want to move from the neediness to the creator, let's make this shift happen today, right? Okay, we're going to go through a 5-step battle plan here, right? And as I said, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, right? I'm only giving you, and this is a topic where I had to work quite extensively in it here. So I might run with a couple of different options today, right? But number one, right, identify where you're clinging like a baby, like a boy, and you're not leading like a man, right? Pull out your journal, and by this point, I hope you've got a journal, right? Or even say it out loud to yourself like a man who's done lying, right? Where right now are you needing? Are you clinging, grasping, gripping, hoping for certainty, looking for validation, approval, security? Ask yourself, where do I feel like this? If I lose everything. Where do I feel anxious when things aren't going my way? Where do I tolerate being out of integrity to keep the peace or to keep that outcome? And I don't care what you say, all of us at some point do this. I know that I done it so bad, especially in business, when I was desperate for that deal. I was out of integrity all the time, right? And this step requires brutal honesty. No fucking lying to yourself, right? This is your shadow work, right? Step number 2, face the fear beneath the cling, right? Every time you feel that neediness, there's a fear underneath it. Fear of being alone, fear of failure, fear of insignificance, fear of being exposed, fear of being seen. Name it, right? Stare it down, own it. Don't spiritualize it. Don't love it away. Just call it what it is. I'm afraid if I lose this relationship, I will feel worthless. I'm afraid if this launch fails, I feel like a fraud or a failure. I'm afraid if people reject me, I won't survive. Right? Because this is the root of it. And this is where you change your life. You can't detach from what you're not afraid to look at, because then you're in denial. Right? And then it's step number 3, reclaim the throne of choice. Right? Once you've exposed the fear, okay, ask yourself, if I wasn't owned by this fear, what would I choose? Right? That's detachment. It doesn't mean you stop wanting the thing. It means you stop needing it to feel okay. Right? For example, you still want to build a business, but you no longer make your identity, which is dependent on that result. Right? You still want that relationship, but you're no longer betraying your truth to keep it. Right? You still want that goal, but you've released the timeline and the outcome. This is when your posture shifts. This is when you move from chasing to choosing. Okay, step number 4, create from the overflow, not emptiness. Right? Every day before you move into action, ask yourself, am I creating from fullness or from fear? Right? If you feel like you need the result, stop, recenter, ground yourself, big deep breaths, focus on the energy coming from your feet to the ground. Right? Get back to wholeness. Right? Whether you have to go breath work, cold water, meditation, stillness, whatever anchors you back into your body and your power, use that. Then move forward from the overflow, not to prove, not to fill the hole, but because you're creating it from that's who you are, right? Number 5, right? Train detachment like a muscle. Daily reps. Detachment isn't an aha moment, an epiphany, and that's it. It's a discipline. Every night, review your day. Where did I cling? Right? Where did I create from fullness? Where did I give my power away? Write it down, own it, and see the next day. Just get sharper. Right? This is how warriors practice. It's not a weekend workshop or a fucking 3-hour masterclass. It's an everyday dojo, man. Train that shit every day. Because a man who needs nothing can create anything, because he's no longer negotiating with fear. He's leading, he's moving, he's choosing. That's detachment. That's freedom. That's masculine power in the purest form. Neediness is weakness. Clinging is weakness. It doesn't make you a bad man. It makes you human. But the man who stays stuck in that state, he never becomes the man he was destined to be. And you are here for something greater, brother, or you would not be watching me. I promise you that. You're not built to be a slave to outcomes, to people, to opinions. You're built to create, to choose, to move forward like the outcome is already done. And if it doesn't show up, you still walk with your head held high. That's the way of the detached creator. That's the way of the warrior. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't grip, you lead. And from that energy, everything will flow towards you. So here's the next steps today. Catch those needy moments. Rewrite them in real time. Okay, use the steps that I've given you. And remember, isn't about getting it perfect. It's about showing up daily, practicing the art of detachment. Okay, until it becomes who you are. And see if this message hit home. Right? Share it with another brother who needs it. And if you're serious about building that kind of inner strength, subscribe, hit the notification bell, give the video a like, drop a comment, right? And just tell me I'm on board with awakening my savage. Okay, because we are just getting started. And as always, I truly appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being here. I love you guys. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one of a video here, and you can subscribe here. Take care.